Hello, a little podcast on what we're calling vein exercise. This is a term the Scandinavians use. My origins actually come out of Finland, and they kind of developed this culture, this sauna culture. And the vein exercise is a term that's used in another language to describe the hot and cold treatment. And so this helps the veins, which makes sense. It's like there's a vasodilation, a vasoconstriction, and in a sense, you can see the vein exercise. You can see the working out, but with the veins. Instead of weights, you're using hot and cold to create that. And somebody had recently mentioned to me, even the hot and cold is almost electrically like shock therapy. Before we had electricity, it was like that same sort of shock, that same sort of type of thing in a different way, which I'd never thought of that either. But it is true. That's how you can, there is. I think even in mental institutions, they had a form of that before we had electricity, and they used the shock value, no pun intended, to try to, you know, um, affect the brain in certain ways back then, before they developed other means, which I'm not even going into the validity or whatever. I'm just staying with the hydrotherapy part of this. And so this vein exercise is important. There's a lot of things happening in the world right now that this myocardia and a lot of conditions, heart conditions that we're having, like heart disease being one of the biggest killers, in the Western world, um, especially for men, but in general, um, and how to strengthen that cardia, how to strengthen those muscles there. A lot of those muscles don't regenerate not properly, but it's hard to get them to regenerate. It's an area that um, is is in constant use, and so it's not the same as another area of the body. It's not like you have a muscle and here you just kind of start using it and then it gets bigger. It's like the heart's always being used. So how to add some dimension of improvement there? And so an interesting way is through the hot and cold treatment. So using sauna and then cold after that. And I would say the cold would probably need to be ice cold, because I think it's almost like the cold is the richest part of the experience. It's definitely the shock part, and it's the richest part of the experience. And it almost seems like you would be building a technique around the shock. And so trying to domesticate that shock, or that, to where you not only, I guess, get used to it and that becomes a type of strength, um, but that becomes, yeah, it becomes a way of, like, a workout, and I don't know if it has to be done as often, or, it could be, once a week, or whatever. I haven't worked out the exact details of it. But I would say it could probably help for a given period to go there, and then maybe to stay with something that can be used throughout the life, like a hot tub and then ice bucket or whatever. These are all solutions that can exist almost anywhere on the planet. Um, and so this is a very powerful idea. I hear a lot of people talking about different vaccines, different things with myocardia issues, and especially with males. And this hot cold therapy could be a great way to strengthen the veins in the case of any sort of loss of, capacity, and could be a life practice, which could be very healthy. I know that in Siberia, when people were getting sick, there was some phase where a lot of people were dying. Maybe it was like there was a combination of famine and weather, and they would go out. And I remember reading these reports that they would go out into the cold waters, and everybody, you're like, how on earth, why would you do that? Like, that seems like the last thing you'd want to do. And it's like, no, because they're reawakening this force, this like deeper force. If you dive into like burning, I mean, freezing cold water, you will be bright red in no time. There's so much heat pumping through your body at that moment to try to like save your life and keep you from, hypothermia or whatever. And so there is some powerful tools there that can be used and domesticated to some degree I'm not saying we should abuse it. And I know there's like this whole Wim Hof, I think, movement, which has some good parts to it. But overall, I don't know about all of what he's doing. But I will say that the cold therapy that he goes into, and especially when heat's added to that, I don't believe in doing cold on cold. I believe your body should be warm before you jump in the cold. It depends on your frame, and there's a lot of other things too. But so there should be a way to do this which maximizes the cold to the right way, where the cold is what we're looking for, the shock we're looking for too, but we're not trying to like be sick and and or do it in too long or too short interval or whatever it is, to where we're not getting the right, the body is having to adapt its immune system, and we don't want to do that. We want it to be short and sweet if possible, but maybe regular. And so allowing that, like you would any other type of gym workout, this could be added to that. So keep this in mind, because it could be a game changer. We're seeing a lot of old medicines and old ideas from Hippocrates and activated charcoal and Artemis based plants, which create like fenbendazole and all these like anti-worm, anti-cancer drugs, and like anti-cancer, like controversial, but like you know and so we're just realizing that a lot of these old plants and old remedies are coming through and helping us today. So come check us out at theheartoftradition.com for what we have: books, tips, transdermal magnesium, all of it. Thanks.